Welcome to the Melinda Eitzen Show. I'm Melinda. Today we have with us Julie Shannon. She's an author, mentor, coach. Now she's writing song lyrics. She does everything. Julie, I'm so glad you're here.
It's so good to be with you, Melinda. Thanks for inviting me. I know. I was trying to remember how long it's been since we've seen each other, but it doesn't matter. We're together now.
We're together now.
We are.
You moved to Tennessee.
I did.
That's part of the reason we
I know.
haven't seen
Yeah, that could be part of it.
But you wrote a book.
I did write a book.
Show the audience. So more than one. She's really written at least 3, right? Let's see if I can hold all these up.
Thank you.
And they're great. So let's talk about the winds of change.
Yes, ma'am. We all have them, don't we?
Yes, and you had it literally.
Yes.
One of the examples in the book of storms was a tornado.
Yes.
So you had it literally. But why'd you write the book?
Why did I write the book? Well, I'd been through several different storms before I even thought about writing the book, which the other 2 books are on infertility and what I call involuntary childlessness. So when you want a child and you can't have them, because a lot of people choose not to have children. And so I call it involuntary because I wanted children and couldn't have them.
Yes.
And then I had been through a divorce, been through the tornado, and then the pandemic hit. And as I was walking around the neighborhood that got hit by the tornado, and I was watching bulldozers come in and take houses down, cement foundations that had maybe 2 walls left on them, it just really struck me. It was a physical representation of what can happen after a storm. So that aftermath, because I was feeling it hugely at the time with what the world was going through, what I had been through personally. And I started thinking about, how do we deal with storms? How do we prepare for them? Because I'm a big, I have my bag now, my tornado bag if there's bad weather. I've got my hard sole shoes, I have water, I have my dog's leash. I have everything right there.
Well, you mentioned in the book that I think there's a religious component to your book, right? A religious perspective.
Yes.
You're a Christian and you come at this and you have a seminary degree, right?
I do. I have 2 actually.
So you're not only a Christian, you're very educated in the Bible and all things. So you come at this from a Christian perspective, but you quote someone who says, it's not if we're going to have a storm, right?
Yes.
I think it was a religious leader of some type. We're all going to have storms. If you live long enough,
yes,
you're going to encounter loss, grief. You're going to get a divorce. Someone's going to die. I mean, something's going to happen, right?
Yes. And even those things, anxiety, depression, which we're seeing massive numbers growing, those are all there. The storms can vary. They're all a variation.
Yes.
And even the positive things in life that can happen. My deciding to go try a new place.
Yes, Tennessee.
Totally unexpected. It was a joyful thing, but it was very unnerving.
Yeah, change is hard.
Change can be so hard, and I think that's important to remember whatever we're going through. And someone has been through something similar, and we forget that, and we can isolate and feel all alone. It was one of my pastors. It's funny because my graduate school degrees were totally unexpected later in life. Those came about as a result of some of the infertility I walked, and I was doing mentoring and coaching, and I thought, oh, I want to go pursue a degree in one of these things. And it sent me down a road of teaching and speaking and things like that.
Yes.
And in the whole quote about, if you're not, I'm trying to remember how he said it. He said, we all have storms in life. And there are blessings on the other side of storms, even when we can't see it in the storm. And if you're not in a storm right now, get ready.
Yes. So I liked that because it's, don't just stick your head in the sand and think, oh, I'm never going to, they're not talking about me.
Exactly.
Well, yet. They're not talking about you yet. One thing that I noted is you're very vulnerable and you tell your own story. You're very transparent in a generous way in your book. And you share, some of the very, heartbreaking things that you went through. And in the infertility, for example, it's not just, oh, I couldn't have a child. It was that you had several miscarriages, and
Yes.
it, when you read it, it just breaks your heart. I mean, I'm about to tear up just thinking about it. But what's important and impressive to me about that is by sharing that story, you're able to help other people.
Oh, thank you.
And that's been a lot of your calling, I think, is a lot of your mentoring and coaching is helping other people.
And I fought that for a long time because I thought, hey, I had to walk through it. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you want to go through it again with someone else?
Right. But then I realized, hey, when I've gone through something and I know someone else has walked, like all of our journeys are totally different. Mm-hmm. All of our storms, maybe they look similar, but we each experience things differently. Mm-hmm. And that was important for me to remember, to say, you can at least be vulnerable and say, here's what I've been through. You are not alone. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's so hard when we get in the middle of a hard time, a difficult journey, and we feel like we are the only people who've ever been there.
Oh, it's easy to isolate, right?
And that's the worst thing we can do. Mm-hmm. And yet that's our default. You're right. That's our default. We tend to draw inward and we don't reach out. And then people here, it's two-sided. I think sometimes we can withdraw, and then sometimes our close people might withdraw from us because they don't know what to do.
They don't know what to say.
Right.
They don't know what to do. They haven't been through it.
Nope.
They don't want to say the wrong thing. They start having weird self-talk about, well, I'm her friend, but I'm not her close friend, and she really wouldn't want me to be in the middle of this. She'd want her close friend, and then you end up with no one.
Truth. That is truth. So I encourage people to go sit in the awkward.
Oh, I love that. Oh, what a great way to say it. Go sit in the awkward.
Sit in the awkward space with your friend, your coworker, your family member, maybe even a stranger that you hear about. Just go be present. We can't fix it. We can't offer the right scripture. Like you addressed my Christian faith aspect of the book. Mm-hmm. I wrote the book to meet people in their pain, but part of my story is my faith. So I wove that through so that anybody could read it and understand. And no matter what you believe, you can read that book and have a better understanding of how can we show up for each other.
And you don't have to know what to say.
No,
you don't have to say anything.
Exactly.
That's why I like the way you said it. Sit in the awkward.
Yes.
Because it is awkward sometimes, and you haven't experienced it. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't have to say anything. No. You can just show up.
Yes.
Frankly, they don't really want to hear a bunch of stuff.
No.
They want support, and maybe they need to say a bunch of stuff, right? Sometimes not. Sometimes we're just going to sit there together quietly.
Absolutely. Say, I want to come over and bring you coffee and sit and read a book while you knit or whatever you want to do together. Yeah. But I think we get into trouble when we put that pressure on ourselves. I need to know the right thing to say. And then we end up saying something that's not helpful. And so you're right. Just show up, be present, be a presence in that awkward space. It's uncomfortable. Once you do it, you understand it. But it's uncomfortable to step into that if you've never done it. And to know it is okay to not have an answer for someone because you can't.
Right.
We can't fix.
You don't know their entire situation.
Right.
And you don't need to solve it for them. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
So, I'm a divorce lawyer.
Yes.
And divorce is one of the major life changes, right?
Yes.
So again, even though it could be for the best, it doesn't mean that people just, no, easy peasy, right? It's emotional. You talk about your own divorce in the book. And I think that sometimes people who are going through a divorce, their friends either feel like they have to pick a side, right?
Yes.
So they lose some friends because they picked the other side or something. And we don't have to pick a side.
No, we don't at all. We don't at all. And that is a great example because that's a very awkward space. Because number one, we never know what really is going on in someone's home.
Oh, for real. And we don't need to.
We don't need to. So there's no need to pick a side. Be loving and compassionate to both sides. And here it's two-sided, because if I'm okay, when I was in the middle of my divorce and afterwards, I withdrew. I was in my little cave, and I reached out finally to a couple of very close friends to say, okay, here's what's going on, and all the horrible feelings and everything that just came over me. But I was like, I need to tell I've got to talk about this and share that this is happening. And these weren't people I was still close to. My closest friends knew, of course, what had been going on. These were longtime friends that I was a bit worried about how they would feel about me, knowing that this was going on. I had to reach out, and they accepted and loved me and embraced me through it. So it's two-sided. We can't expect people to come to us without them knowing what's going on.
Yes. Well, and when you're in a religious world, there are some religious worlds where there's still a lot of judgment.
Yes.
And whether there is or not, sometimes people worry there will be.
Yes.
Right? What will they think, that my
Yes.
marriage wasn't the perfect marriage? And will they condemn me and not
Right.
accept me in the religious circle anymore? And that isn't Christian.
That becomes such a tender place for everyone involved. And I will say to that there's a lot of truth to that. And I just keep preaching kindness and compassion and empathy. And we don't know what is happening with people.
Yes.
And let's give people grace and kindness and care. One of the most meaningful things that happened to me during that difficult time, one of the lifelong friends that I called to say, okay, here's what's happened. You have no idea, but let me tell you. And she said, okay, what are you doing Friday night? My husband and I want to come get you for dinner. And I was like, okay. I was still, in that that raw place. I didn't want to go anywhere, but I was like, okay, I'll go. And they drove up, they both came to the door to get me. They walked me to the car. We went, we had dinner. They were just they listened, they were just present. And then when they brought me home, they both walked me to the door. And they were like, we had so much fun on our date. And I just started crying. I was like, thank you. Thank you so much for just getting me out of my yuck.
Yes.
And
yes.
getting me out in public and being with me and loving on me.
And one thing that people don't realize, and I've done divorce work for 30 years, is people do not quickly go to divorce.
No.
I mean, I've done divorce work 30 years. I've seen 1 million people divorce. And the truth is they wait way too long before they get divorced. They are not quick to do it. So they have already been through a lot. They've already tried everything. It wasn't salvageable. I heard a mental health professional recently say that he thinks people are thinking about it for 5 years before they do it. I know. I was like, really? That seems like a long time. But I agree with him in that probably the marriage has been dysfunctional at least 5 years. And they just either were in denial, they didn't know what to do, they were trying to get the other person to see the light or whatever, and then they finally just give up. I mean, you are not meant to just live in misery for the rest of your life. And they say, okay, I have to do something, So those people shouldn't be judged. And I'm very religious and active in religion also. I believe in organized religion, so I'm not trying to condemn it. But I do think, the dangers of the overly religious zealot is sometimes in their effort to be a proponent for marriage, they lose sight of sometimes it really isn't going to work, and we don't want to make people feel horrible for taking care of themselves.
Correct. And that's such a valid point, and especially the part about it's people, I would say, generally speaking, the majority of the time, people aren't taking it lightly.
Yes.
I think there's this misnomer out there that people are just jumping in. I'm
not
done.
at
I'm just going to do
all.
it. And thank you for saying that, because I think that is a matter of education. I think that's a matter of communication with people who are involved in communities, in religious circles. I think that's just understanding more the reality of what people go through.
It looks like it's hasty.
Yes.
Because people don't want to air their dirty laundry. Right?
Correct.
So they're putting on a facade. And if you think about how much you really see those people outside, it's not that much.
Yeah.
I mean, hour or two at church on Sunday, maybe once a month at another function, or it's even if they're your good friends, what, 2 more hours a week?
Yeah.
Like a huge part of their life you are not witnessing. So you don't really know what's going on over there.
No. And I address that a little bit in the book, that I know that there are probably still people who knew me during that time and knew us, and that if they read my book and see that, they'll be completely shocked. Because a lot of it's embarrassing. A lot of it is you're desperately working behind the scenes, trying to make everything work.
Yes.
It's interesting. I was trying to remember, this came to me this morning before I got here, and I was trying to remember who said this to me, and I couldn't. So I'm sorry for whoever I need to give credit to. But it was at some function, and I was talking to a judge who was in the family court, and we were talking about just in general, kind of like you and I are talking about the pain that's out there and all of the things that people can go through in a marriage or in a crisis in a marriage or after a divorce or whatever. And he said, it's really hard for me sometimes because I'm seeing people on the hardest day of their life.
Oh, yes.
And that is the only time I get to work with them.
Oh, yes. We see good people at their worst.
And that had such an impact on me. I thought, wow. It was somebody who'd been on the bench for years. And I thought, how does someone do that? But he was compassionate and passionate about helping people deal with those hard things. And I think sometimes in the world, we can lose sight of what are some practical things that we do for other people or for ourselves in those storms in life, whether it's a divorce or an illness. There can be just critical illness out there or great grief and loss. And, earlier you mentioned about mental health. I mean, there's a mental health crisis.
Oh, yes.
And there's just so much we only see on the surface of anybody's life. And I think part of our responsibility as fellow human beings and being in community is to be able to say, who do I want to be today? Who do I want to be for myself? And who do I want to be for Melinda?
Yeah, to make a choice.
And I think we have to be very intentional about that. It's too easy to just jump into our day and be caught up in everything that's going on and get, we all have busy, we all have stress, we have all the things in life. And it just takes a few minutes every day to go, you know what? I want to be a nicer person on social media today.
Well, you did your gratefulness post. So
yes.
One thing that's nice about your book, even though it has some very serious themes, right? And you're very vulnerable about some of the horrible things that you've gone through, it still is a very hopeful book because it's talking about, and then what? How do we get through it? And one of the things that you did in your social media posting is you intentionally did a gratitude post every day for a long time.
7 years.
Oh my goodness. Longer than I thought.
I had no intention. Again, there's another unexpected in life. I had no intention. So, yes.
And I've heard and read that there is actually science to support that if you're intentional in your gratitude practices, that you can kind of change your brain.
Totally. And I'm so glad you brought that up because given our current political climate and upcoming in the year 2024 or whatever year, any year that we have, in pretty much even when it's not a political year, we have politics, right?
Oh, it's horrible.
So, that's
horrible.
what triggered it the first time, just seeing all the negativity. And that's what made me want to jump off of social media. I was just kind of done. And then I said to myself, okay, that's not who you are. Who do you want to be, Julie? Do you want to put some more good in the world and try to be positive? And trust me, I get it wrong more than I get it right.
No.
But that's one of the things that just grabbed my heart. And I thought, well, what I could do is counter it. And so at the time I called it I think I called it my thankfulness campaign
Oh, I like that.
to counter the election campaigns,
Yes,
right?
yes, I like that.
So I posted what I'm thankful for every day. And there are days where it is very hard to come up with something you're thankful for. I know that. Because some days it was like, oh, I heard some really pretty birds singing today.
Yeah.
And I didn't plan it ahead of time. I just did it every day because I wanted to make myself really find it. And then I invited people to jump on and do their thankfulness. And so it grew. And then after that year's whole political thing ended, I stopped. And a good friend of mine was going through some very, very heartbreaking, challenging times. And she called me. She said, "What do you think you're doing?" And I'm like,
Get back to it.
I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, what did I do wrong? I'm sorry, whatever." And she said, "That's the one hopeful thing in my day every day."
Oh.
And she goes, "I need you." And she lives 1,200 miles away from me. She said, Jules, I need you to do this every day. And I go, okay. And I said, well, okay, how long? She goes, don't worry about that. You just need to keep doing it. And so,
oh my gosh.
literally 7 years. And just.
Are you still going? Or have you
No,
stopped?
I stopped a few years ago just because I was like, okay, 7 years.
7
That feels
years
like a
might be
complete, kind of biblical number. Okay. And not long ago, I thought, you know what? I think I need to start that again. And not what triggered it was something on social media.
Oh.
But then I was like, be honest with yourself. Your mindset was way different when you did that every day.
Oh, well, I heard.
So you just kind of helped shove me over the edge with that. Thank you.
I heard Tate. I go to the Tate lecture series, and there was a speaker there on happiness, and he was talking about gratitude practice. And so, because of that, my husband and I did it for not 7 years, maybe 7 months. But this was our rule. Every night we would write we would each say 3 things we were grateful for, but you could not repeat. So you can't just say, I'm grateful for you, I'm grateful for the kids, or I'm grateful, like we know
Grateful for
that.
the roof over our head.
Right, you can't repeat. So and I kept it, and I look back at it sometimes. And one, it was funny because my husband's really funny. Like his first one was like a monkey or something. I was like, that's your first thing you're grateful for? Monkeys. I like monkeys. So, but it made you really look. I mean, 7 years, you had to look too. But it made you really look beyond the obvious things that, hopefully we're all grateful for and aware of. Because you couldn't repeat. But it was a fun and wonderful process. So I also affirm that I believe that is helpful to people.
And you know what it does too? Here's what I found it did for me. You go through your day with a different mindset.
You're looking for it.
Yes.
Yes, I like that.
I mean, at first it was stressful. It's like, I got to find something to be thankful for. Like what? And then it became this is so fun. I can't wait to post this tonight because I would run into somebody random and go, oh my gosh. Okay, here's the other cool thing. So for 7 years, every day, a friend of mine from college who I have not seen since college, nor have I seen her since this whole campaign years ago. She jumped on every single day. She was the one person that did it every single day.
So she did it with you.
For 7 years.
That's so cute.
And so I felt that responsibility. I was like, if no one else sees this, I know she's looking and waiting.
To not miss for 7 years is a lot. Because, what if you're just sick that day or something?
I know, but I would have those days and go, I had to dig deep. But, I think one time I did. I think one time I was sick and I was like, yes, I was, because I posted. I was like, I am so thankful for my humidifier. I'm like, oh, well.
Desperate times.
Got to be real. I'm so glad y'all did that together. That's so fun.
Was fun.
I love that, to do it with your husband.
Yeah, and we journaled it so we can look back,
Oh,
and I
love
recently
that.
I spoke in church, and I was talking about gratitude. That was my theme. And I went through and just hit some of the highlights, funny and sweet, so that was good.
I love that y'all did it to keep.
I know. It was good.
Okay, you're inspiring me. Now I'm going to do it differently.
Oh. Okay, let's talk
ma'am.
about your mentoring and coaching.
Yes,
So who do you mentor and coach? And can people hire you to do that, or how does it work?
I do a lot. It's funny, when I first started doing it, it was a friend of mine's daughter, and I believe she was 13 at the time. And we bonded over a Michael W. Smith song. So if you don't know him, he's a contemporary Christian singer, and he's really good. But it was like I was at their house one day and I started singing it, and she just was like, you know that song? And I don't know, we had this little bond. And she heard at school something about getting another adult in your world to mentor you. So she asked her mom if I could mentor her. So all the way through junior high and high school, we would have coffee together, like, I don't know. I don't remember if it was like once every 2 weeks, but I knew her parents well. They trusted me. She trusted me. And it just became this another adult in her world to go to. And so
great.
I did that with several friends' daughters, and then started doing it through a nonprofit I was helping with, and then started doing it with people who wanted somebody to walk with them and pay somebody to do it for them and with them. And that's how the mentoring piece started. And I know how important mentors to me are. I encourage people all the time, find someone who's a little further ahead of you to speak into your life, and be available for those who are behind you too. And this part of it is not, my coaching is the paid arm of how I partially make a living. The mentoring piece, anybody can do for anyone, and that's non-monetary. But I think it's really important that we have different perspectives speaking into our lives.
I love the way you phrase that, speaking into our lives.
Yes. I think we've lost in our culture, if you look back at the history of what communities used to look like, they used to be comprised of all different people. Families stayed together. People move around so much. And you said earlier, we were talking about transient. People are way more transient now. And you don't have those close communities of trusted adults speaking into the lives of families. And speaking as someone who didn't get to have children, it is important for me to be able to do that for people too. When people welcome me into their family, it just means the world.
Oh, it's so great. I had someone once who said, I'm building my board of directors. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, my personal board of directors.
I love that.
He was like asking people in different, capacities, hey, will you be my mentor because I admire you in business? Or will you be my mentor because I admire your walk with Christ? Or
that is brilliant.
And he said, I'm building my board of directors.
Oh my word, I love that. Okay, I'm going to borrow that.
Yes, well, I can't remember who said it. So
I know. Sorry for all
free.
The people we
it's
can't
free
remember.
To the world.
We can't remember the credit, but
yes, but I think that's an excellent way to put it.
That is so great. Yeah, build a board of directors for your life. And be available to be on someone's board of directors.
Yeah, you got to pay it forward, right?
Yeah, because I think we sometimes forget that we're important to other people too, especially in moments of if we're not doing great self-care and we're isolating and we're not reaching out to people and we feel burdened. One of my passions is I want to help move people forward to not get stuck and paralyzed emotionally and spiritually from some of the storms that happen in life. And that's so easy to do. There's no blame. It's just, it's easy to do. So I want to say, hey, let's keep momentum. Let's be in our day. Let's live our life that we have. Sometimes it doesn't, like right now, I've been going and, okay, trust me, I'm still doing this. I'm still learning.
We all are.
I wrote a book on it, but I'm still, I had a friend one time not long ago, I said, I'm really struggling with feeling stuck in this one thing, whatever it was. And she listened. She's probably on my board of directors without knowing she is. And all of a sudden she goes, yeah, I think you need to go read your book.
Read chapter.
And you know who you are. So It was hilarious. And I laughed, and then I went, ouch. And then I went, yeah,
Because
you're right. You're
your
right.
book does have a lot of positive steps. It's not just
Yes.
it's not just theoretical. It's how to.
Yes.
Like, hey, okay, go do these things. And I think that's a really benefit of the book is it's you relate because you've had things happen in your life and
Yeah.
and you're sharing.
you.
But then it also says, okay, so go do something about it, and here are the things to do. And one is service. I mean, if you do service to other people, I always joke that whatever the question, service is the answer, or whatever the question, Jesus is the answer.
Yeah.
If you're in Sunday school, I tell my kids, no matter what, if you don't know the answer, just say Jesus.
Just
They'll
say
never say
Jesus.
that's
I
bad.
love it. I love it. That is
But
so
service
true.
is really takes us out of ourselves. If we're helping someone else, our problems don't seem as monumental.
True. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh my gosh. Okay. That is so key. All right. When we go and think, I'm going to go help this group because, I can wield a hammer, whatever it is. I'm going to go help build a house. I'm going to go deliver groceries.
Yeah.
I can do that. And we start out going to help someone else. And what I found is we always walk away going, wow, that just helped me.
Because service is the answer.
Because service is the answer. And the other thing, I'm talking about all these people, and they will know who they are. I'm not saying their name. A friend of mine was teaching our Sunday school class years and years ago, and he's very type A, very much he's the first person to show up when there's a need, and he wants to help. And he taught, and he said, one of the things that's so impactful, he said, I love being a blessing to other people. I love I'm the first to go help. I love it. It makes me feel good to be able to go help people. And he said, what I've learned is I'm really bad about accepting help.
Oh, interesting.
And he said, and the bigger lesson I've learned is I'm robbing other people of the opportunity to be a blessing to me.
Yeah, don't steal their blessings.
Exactly. And it's joyful. It's joyful to help people. So
Yes.
if we need to also, it's another two-way street. We need to be willing to be vulnerable and say,
I need help.
I need help.
Yeah. Julie, how do people find your book, and how do they find you for coaching? And you're going to
Awesome.
write a bunch of music that they're going to want to know about. How do
Yes.
they find you?
Okay, so my book is called The Winds of Change, Defining Steps to Build a Strong Foundation and Weather Life Storms. It is wherever you buy books. You can find it, all the places. You can order it. I also have the other two that if you have any interest in infertility or walking with someone. The infertility book is kind of a little hiking guide. And it's me just saying, hey, here's some ideas if you're walking through this. The other book is how we can practically walk with people who weren't able to have children. Those are both on Amazon. They're self-published on Amazon. My website is drjulieshannon.com. And Instagram is at JulieShannonOfficial. And that's where I post. I'm posting things about music I'm working on, writing projects. That's where I'll post my thankful day when I start it again.
It's so great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, what a joy. And I just adore you. And thank you so much for having me on.
I feel the same about you.
You're awesome.
Thank you. And that is the Melinda Eitzen Show for today. Take a tip from Julie Shannon, Dr. Julie Shannon, and be intentional today and find something you're grateful for.